Becca is with me on the stage because one of the things I am aware of is that every single person has something to say about spirituality. So I asked Becca to say something about spirituality. Hi.
Hi.
Say it.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. So I met one of my great spiritual teachers not too long ago. It was a Sunday here at the center, and I was volunteering in the nursery when her mother brought her in. Yes, she's like 3. And she didn't want her mom to go. It was kind of a tearful goodbye. And throughout the hour when we were playing together, she would say things to herself, like, "I'm sad my mom's gone. She'll be back soon." Or, "I miss my mom, but she's coming back for me." And I remember being just kind of astounded at her vulnerability, at her willingness to say these things out loud. Because at the time, I was going through something similar where I was feeling upset when left alone. And that was not how I handled it. My self-talk was more like, "Why is this so hard for you? Normal people don't struggle with things like this. There must be something seriously wrong with you." And I would get just overwhelmed. I would emotionally shut down, and I would armor up by pretending like I didn't care. So I'd be like, "Oh, you're leaving? Yeah, gosh, I've got so much to do. I won't even notice you're gone." But then I'd get in my bed with my teddy bear and eat a bunch of carbohydrates. So there was a little difference there in how she and I handled things. I numbed my feelings. She allowed herself to feel her feelings. I shut down and armored up, and she allowed herself to express what she was wanting. I practiced self-criticism and blame, and she practiced self-soothing. So I knew that I wanted to shift this, but I didn't quite know how. And then I went to this event where there was a self-empathy demo for a workshop. And yeah, I saw it, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but I want some of it. So I went to this workshop. It was called Living Compassion. And I learned a lot of the things that my little guru showed me. The first step was to get in touch with my feelings. So notice that they were there, first of all. Identify them if possible, and allow myself to feel them. So when I heard this, it sounded awful to me. I thought that I was already way too in touch with my feelings. But I did it, and it was really hard for me to admit that I was feeling like sad, lonely, and afraid. It was really scary because it meant being vulnerable. And I just much preferred to numb my feelings with work and food and all those other good things. But thankfully, they didn't leave you there in that state. There's a second step, which is to get in touch with what I was valuing. So I listened to what my feelings were communicating to me was important to me. So in this situation, I was feeling sad because I was really valuing connection. I was feeling lonely because I so wanted companionship. I was feeling afraid because I was really valuing support. And what I noticed is that when I listened to what my feelings were saying to me, I no longer had to make them go away anymore. They just let go of me naturally. So empathy is now my favorite spiritual practice. I do it in journaling. There's a practice group here at the center, one-on-ones. But what I've noticed is one of the best places to practice empathy is actually the bathroom. Yeah, really. Because if I'm super triggered by a situation or a person, what I can do is say, "Oh, will you excuse me for just one moment? I'm just going to run to the restroom really quick." And then I can go there and I can do my empathy, and then I'm more at peace, and I'm more connected to myself and the other person. And there's actually an empathy app. Can you believe that? It was actually made by my friend Earl Wagner. It's called Peace Process. I highly recommend checking it out. So I've spent a lot of effort trying to protect myself from feeling my feelings, feeling vulnerable. And what I've learned is that trading vulnerability for protection is not a good bargain. because, as Dr. Edwards said in his vulnerability class, we can't selectively numb. When I was numbing pain and sadness, I was also numbing my ability to feel joy and love. And as Dr. Brené Brown says, our capacity to be open-hearted can only be as great as our willingness to be broken-hearted. So now, instead of trying to armor myself up so I never feel hurt, I practice self-empathy, I practice treating myself gently, and I practice trusting in my resilience that I can handle whatever comes my way, just like my 2-year-old guru showed me. So I invite you to consider, where can you be more empathic with yourself? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Becca. There you have it. Empathy, self-empathy, and vulnerability as a way of staying deeply in the present moment. I wanted you to hear that this morning because I'm going to be talking about how to avoid being present. So you have the other side of it. We're in the 4th week, I believe it is, on our topic, The Power of Now, based on the book by Eckhart Tolle. And this chapter we're looking at this week, the 4th chapter, is the things that get in the way of us being available to the presence of this experience called now. So I've been thinking about it, and I've also been thinking this week a whole lot about, all the amazing, truly amazing people who are in my life. And how easy it is to forget such a thing, that there are amazing people in life. Isn't that interesting? Because distractions will rise up to distract me from knowing that there are amazing people. And look, some of the distractions are very real. But some of them, it's difficult to tell if they're real or made up. Take, for example, the news. Listening to the news these days, it requires actually being a detective. Because you have to stay alert to the fact that what you're hearing may or may not be so. You can't just take it in. You have to be a detective. You see, because news services, it appears, they seem to magnify the negative aspect of just everything. So that a result is everything is always alarming. Everything. Even the weather is alarming. Everything is alarming. So much so that what is good and true and beautiful and normal about the ordinary things in life, like good, amazing people, can fall into the background. So, according to the news, if it's not urgent, it's not important. The problem with focusing only on what is urgent is that it will take you out of the moment, take you out of the experience of being present for what is truly important. Listening to the news can make a person depressed and worried, and sometimes unduly so. And I think it's because there is so much emphasis over and over again on what is wrong, to the point that it can make it seem irresponsible to even mention what is good. And if you do talk about what is good, you sound like you're out of touch with reality. I am out of touch with the reality of the news mind. But sometimes I let it touch me. Sometimes it gets right in there and it touches me. I let it get to me and I forget. I forget to listen like a detective. I forget not all of it is accurate. Sometimes I let the warped focus take me right out of the present moment, cause me to forget what I know about the simple truth of being. I forget about the beautiful people in my life. And coincidentally this week, two of the beautiful people in my life, two of my friends, had challenges with their hearts. Both of them ended up in the hospital. And one had had a heart attack and hadn't noticed until he started to notice some changes in his thinking and ended up in the emergency room. And the other one, fairly routine procedure, went in to get his pacemaker replaced, and they found that his battery had needed to be changed. I mean, just like science fiction stuff, you know. And I received a text message from both of them, from different cities, from their, hospital rooms. And getting the messages really served as an opportunity for me to press the pause button in the moment and come back to the presence of now and really take in and think about how much I cherish these two people. To really think about how beautiful it is to me to know them and to think about what a miraculous coincidence it is to be alive and on the same planet at the same time as them, and to really take in and appreciate how much I am amazed at the miracle of medical technology and what is possible and what it makes available to me, and to really take in and be touched and moved and amazed that they would contact me out of all of the people they could contact and probably did, but to just feel that. You see, it took this very real moment of life to help me drop into a deep reality check with the present moment. In chapter 4, he's talking about this present moment and how there are certain things that can take us out of the moment. And one of the things that can take us out of the moment is fascination with and dedication to low-level priorities that do not deserve our attention. I'm an important person in my own mind. I tell myself, I've got important things to do. I've got urgent things to attend to, tasks. And so at my home, I have my study with my computer. I've got dual screens and touch screen and keyboard where I can prepare my Sunday notes and have my book open and everything ready to get ready for class. Very important. But my cat Andrew, he doesn't seem to get it. So what he will do is, when I'm ready, you can be sure he will climb up onto the desk, he will sit on the keyboard and put his hand on the book, and then his tail will swipe across the touch screen and start all sorts of applications. I have a photo from the scene of the crime. So this just happened. So I noticed myself getting quite annoyed. And my self-talk is something like, I do not have a lot of time to do these projects. And that cat is so, I have spoiled him. He is so entitled. He's self-centered. So I can just feel myself in my mind just staring him down, saying to him, no, I do not want to play with you now. I have urgent things to attend to. No, I do not want to enjoy your infinite cuteness right now. No, I don't want to be here with you in the moment right now. I would rather delve deeply into the relentless computer screen and be nourished by the 300 emails that have accumulated there for me. I would rather warm up to the committees and the projects and the tasks and the things. I would rather sink into the news services with all of their urgency and silently sit in my headspace with my fingers twirling and generating words into the I don't know where and call that being alive. I don't have time for your purr. What don't you have time for? Fortunately, this week I was called back to the present moment by friends in hospitals and cats on keyboards, reminding me to enjoy them while they are still here in the present moment with me. I wonder what I will be called by next, and if I will listen, or if I will continue to let low-level priorities take center stage and gobble up all the time. In the chapter, he talks about that moment, that first time you're ever called back to the experience of being in the present moment, and how you might get a glimpse of that timeless state of consciousness in which you are fully, fully present. And for some people, it comes in the form of, for some people, it's a flash of surrender during an emergency moment. That's when they meet the present moment for the first time. For others, it comes unexpected in nature as they sit and suddenly are aware of the extraordinary, awesome beauty of nature. For other people, it comes as a result of practice as they mindfully return to the present moment over and over and over again, using something like prayer or meditation or devotional practices, selfless service. For others, it's another one of those moments of clarity in which they realize that that which is right before them truly does deserve their full, complete attention, because in a moment they realize whomever or whatever it is, it may not be there very long. So not to rush, not to miss it. And however it is that these moments come where we are fully awake, it seems to be the case that they don't always stay in full focus. It seems like we dip in and out of them, and even though we learn how valuable and wonderful and important they are, he writes about it poignantly, saying, first, you become aware of just how rarely your attention is truly in the now. But to know that you are not present is a great success. That knowing itself is being in the now. It's enlightenment. Some people are disappointed to discover how frequently they are absent from their lives. But we've got to be gentle with ourselves. We can't fall into self-criticism. It's good news. Similarly, in the Beyond Limits class, some of our students, when they first notice, as they begin paying attention to their self-talk, and they first notice just how toxic it can be in there, they get disappointed. But it's the good news. We've got to be gentle with ourselves because it's the way out. Discovering what is happening is a great success. It's like turning a light on in a dark room, and now suddenly you can see all the furniture that previously you were bumping into because you didn't know it was there. It's enlightenment. Now you know what you've been bumping into. So our task this month is to notice when we leave the moment, the present moment, when we are absent, was that will help us appreciate those moments when we don't. We'll start to see the difference between the two, and we will begin to long for present time living. So one way to avoid being present in the moment is to allow yourself to be swept up, distracted by low-level priorities. Another way to avoid being present is to reject whatever is happening now, especially if it is difficult. How do you reject it? You don't deal with it. Or you pretend it isn't what it is. That'll do it. The reality is, however, that difficulties happen for everyone. It's the way of things. Situations, they just arise that are challenging to cope with. That's how it happens. You know, there are truly very, very hard things in this life. Hate and cruelty, war, poverty really do exist. And pretending none of it exists has never ever stopped any of it from being. And not dealing with it has never ever made any of it disappear. Not dealing with it just takes us out of the present moment into a type of numbness. Maybe the purpose in life, as Thomas More suggests in his beautiful work, The Dark Nights of the Soul, is not to get rid of problems, because they seem to not go away anyway. But instead, he suggests, the purpose of life may be to become more of who we are, more engaged with the people around us, to really live our lives while we meet whatever problems are in them. To really live present, no matter what is in our lives. And you know, when he writes it, it sounds so obvious. It sounds so correct and desirable. And yet I notice that many people, and sometimes I'm that many people, are focused on escaping from life instead. He writes about people trying to escape from life, very poignantly saying they are afraid to let it flow through them. And so their vitality gets channeled into ambitions, addictions, preoccupations that don't give them anything worth having. I'm thinking of that phrase, the only way out is through. And as he writes in the book Eckhart Tolle, he says it's not whether or not you have problems in your life isn't a measure of your spirituality. It's how present you stay when you do have problems. That's the measure. So ways to avoid being present. Number one, be distracted by low-level priorities. Number two, don't deal with what is happening. And then number three is closely related. It's this: to let the problems that you do have kidnap you. Hijack your thinking. That'll do it. As you won't be present for anything. I was trained very well in this way by my family of origin. Because I grew up in a household where worry was how a responsible person behaved. In fact, if you weren't worrying, then you just weren't being realistic. So as a result, I grew up in an environment in which everyone was being held hostage by what could happen. All the time, everything was very urgent. And then according to the way of things, things would happen. Always. Which then became proof that the worry had been appropriate. Anybody have the same family? The best indicator of your level of consciousness is how you deal with life's challenges when they come. Through these challenges, an already unconscious person tends to become more deeply unconscious. And a conscious person more intensely conscious. Wow. Well, to be fair, different areas of life challenge people in different ways. You know, I know, for example, I have a friend who's very, very conscious when it comes to relationship and communicating. He's just excellent about that and very secure in how to get along with people. But when it comes to finances and money, he's infantile. And if something goes wrong with finances, he plummets into darkness. Now I have a friend who's just the exact opposite. Financially, he has great business acumen. He can make money out of nothing. He knows he's never going to have a problem. He just handles it. He's filled up with a sense of consciousness around finances. But in relationship, oh no. And if something goes wrong in relationship, it plummets him down into darkness. So the question is, where is the area of plummeting darkness for you? Or what do you let kidnap you in your thinking? Where do you go unconscious? Because to become aware of that is a great prize. And it's how you discover the doorway that leads to being more present. And he points out in the book so very beautifully that if you and I cannot be available and present to something as ordinary as making a cup of tea or sitting alone with ourselves for 10 minutes of silence without checking out, chances are it's possible that you will feel challenged staying present when something goes wrong. And it will. When difficulty arises, when communications get gritty, when loss occurs, when threats happen, you may, as the author says, find yourself being taken over by fear in one of its many forms, like reaction, because you may, through lack of practice, have a very low tolerance for being present. But there is an antidote. And it's very simple. It's so simple that you could miss it. It truly is very, very simple. It's this: to bring more consciousness into the ordinary things of life. And it's expressed best this way: to stop and smell the roses. It's really that simple. That is exactly how we refuel ourselves, so that we can be present for life in its complexity and richness. He says that many people are so imprisoned in their minds that the beauty of nature does not really exist for them. They might say, "What a pretty flower," but that's just a mechanical mental labeling. Because they are not still, not present, they don't truly see the flower. They don't feel its essence, its holiness, just as they don't know themselves, don't feel their own essence, don't know their own holiness. How about that?